I do not think Ghostbusters 2016 is the worst film ever. It doesn't make me angry. It's not awful. It's just dull. So, where does that leave us? If I was handed a blank check and told to fix this, what kind of a plot would we end up with? Well, I'd say don't do it, because Ghostbusters has been done. But it's Sony, and they're gonna do it anyway. So this is the only treatment I can come up with on short notice. It may not be the best, or great, but it's something. So we start off with some kids doing the old Bloody Mary in a mirror routine at an abandoned school. You might know this bit. You say Bloody Mary in a mirror 3 times and a ghost is supposed to appear. At first it looks like it's the trick of a clever bully, but then the bully gets spooked himself and sees something in the mirror. Cut to his scream in the opening title with the Ghostbusters logo. We then start off with Patty, who works at an advertising agency. She's the odd duck of the bunch. Street smart and savvy, she pegs her peers as a bunch of corporate goons who couldn't sell ice cream to an Eskimo. They don't know what people want, they just rely on focus groups to water down all the good ideas. Now, 2 things. First, I've known people who've worked in advertising, and they'll tell you this is 100% true. Second, this is a commentary that desperately needs to be made in a Sony movie of all things. Of course, they find her ideas too unorthodox and politically incorrect. Frustrated, she threatens to quit, and they take her up on it. After cleaning out her desk, she meets up with her friends Abby and Holtzman. They were all old college roommates, but the other 2 never left university. They welcome her back and are thrilled she quit, but she points out that they've been in school for over a decade and have nothing to show for it. The 2 insist they have a real lead this time from reliable witnesses. Patty agrees to go along and is disappointed to find out it's a bunch of kids. They hear the kid's story about the ghost in the mirror and investigate. At the old school, they find signs of occult activity and just assume it was some hokey devil worshippers or teenagers that spooked the kid. But then they encounter the ghost. I don't know how this ghost would work, but it would make a good scare. The 3 of them finally have the evidence they need, and Patty is now a believer. Unfortunately, when they return to the college, they find out it's been shut down by the feds. Turns out it was one of those junk colleges that was being used as a tax scheme, which may explain the free reign Abby and Holtzman had to begin with. So now they're all out of a job. Then Patty comes up with an idea, a ghost extermination service. Holtzman will be the tech, Abby the researcher, and Patty the marketer. From there, they open up shop above the Chinese restaurant, which honestly I thought was pretty funny in the 2016 version. As Patty starts a low-budget marketing blitz across the city, we cut to a local tabloid, a real Bat Boy Lives kind of paper. There we're introduced to Erin, an English major, single mom, and frustrated writer. She has higher ambitions than fake news stories and wants to write a real Pulitzer piece. Her boss assigns her to the Ghostbusters craze cropping up, but Erin argues they should take a different angle. What if she exposes them as frauds? Maybe they could write the first honest news story in the paper's history. Something that would give them legitimate cred with the local media. Her boss signs off on it and she applies to be the 4th Ghostbuster, going undercover to figure out how the scam works. She then becomes the Winston of the group, and we learn more about them through her. Abby had an experience with a ghost when she was a child. Patty's uncle and father worked at a funeral home, which is why she put up with Abby and Holtzman for so long. Always surrounded by death, she wanted to believe there was something more out there, proof of the afterlife. So she's not the same type of skeptic as Venkman, but she does demand evidence. Of course, if she can prove the naysayers wrong and make cold hard cash off this venture, all for the better. As for Holtzman, I'd make it a running joke that nobody knows where the hell she came from. Abby claims Patty found her, and Patty claims Abby found her, so she just kinda showed up. Kevin is also hired, but as I said earlier, he'd be more like a crouching beefcake hidden Einstein. Nobody takes him seriously, much to his annoyance. The movie would follow their investigations, which leads Erin to the shocked realization that ghosts are real and they aren't frauds. But her story, what to do, only time will tell. The investigations reveal that these ghosts aren't ordinary specters, but summoned manifestations of urban legends. The vanishing hitchhiker, the ghost in the mirror, the hook on the door, Stingy Jack, the headless horseman, the Jersey Devil, all the legendary yarns that made the rounds in schools and campfires for decades. Abby points this out and says that whoever is summoning these ghosts are using classic archetypes to tap into primordial fears, to which Patty adds, it's like they're trying to bring Halloween to life. But to what end? And what does all this occult activity, a shady group of druids who are spotted near the scenes of these hauntings, have to do with it? Enter Ivo Shandor. He's rich, a tech genius, and he has his hands in every Manhattan politician's pocket. As the CEO of a major telecommunications company, he's spearheading the placement of a new antenna atop the Empire State Building, to be activated on Halloween night. As the Ghostbusters put together that he's involved, he becomes the main antagonist, using his power to try to get the mayor to shut them down. And, as I said earlier, this would be played straight. The mayor, the cops, the fire department, Shandor, they're all portrayed seriously and not as cartoon characters. This makes the Ghostbusters seem even crazier in a more normal New York. Well, as normal as New York can get. Eventually they find out that the Druidic activity is tied to the cult of Samhain, or, again, Samhain, whatever. A secret organization that goes to the highest levels of Manhattan's rich and famous. Think of their meetings as like Eyes Wide Shut without all the softcore porn. Their goal is to conduct bizarre rituals designed to bring about the end of daylight under the dark gaze of Samhain, the dreaded ghost of Halloween. Ooh. To do this, they've been generating fear across the city in order to lure Samhain through a trans-dimensional gateway. As Abby pointed out from Tobin's Spirit Guide, Samhain is drawn to fear like a shark is drawn to blood in the water. The Ghostbusters figure out where this trans-dimensional rip is going to happen by using the ley lines. Another fun idea the reboot actually had. It turns out they crisscross at the Empire State Building. Eventually, things come to a head when some suspicious ghostly activity is reported late night at a candy factory. There they encounter Shandor and his cult working on some secret project. Much like the reboot, Shandor sacrifices himself via electrocution, which I didn't think was that bad of an idea. The Ghostbusters report back to the mayor to try to expose the now late Shandor and the cult. The mayor reveals that Shandor had every right to be there and oversee operations because it was one of his investment properties. Furthermore, he's furious that an apparent electrical accident has killed off one of the city's largest philanthropists, and wonders just what the hell these 4 ghost exterminators were doing there anyway. For their part, the Ghostbusters beg him to cancel the city's Halloween festivities, but he responds by shutting them down for good. It's now Halloween night. Back at their HQ, the Ghostbusters have hit a low. Abby and Holtzman examine evidence from the candy factory. They notice the recipes contain bizarre ingredients, wormwood, mandrake, real old-school witchcraft-style alchemy, not your standard Halloween candy filler ingredients. As they ruminate over this, Kevin walks in and reveals that Erin is not who she said she was. Though we don't know it yet, Kevin's been possessed by Shandor. Erin claims she already reconsidered publishing the story, but the other 3 ladies are angry as all hell and she's fired on the spot. Once she's gone, possessed Kevin gets to work and busts up whatever equipment he manages to get his hands on. Once again, not a bad idea in the reboot. Eventually, Ivo Shandor abandons Kevin's body to fulfill his plans elsewhere. So the Ghostbusters take the unconscious Kevin and tie him to an office chair with power cords just to be sure. Then they catch wind of police activity near the Empire State Building. It seems like the trick-or-treaters of New York City have been possessed and are heading towards the skyscraper. The women scramble to Ecto 1. At Erin's apartment, she watches in horror at the news coverage. Hundreds of children in costumes have surrounded the Empire State Building with eyes glowing like the children of the damned. Her son, who had snuck out against her wishes, stumbles in, explaining that all his friends went nuts. Then it hits her. The candy, the weird ingredients. Any child who's eaten the candy has become a minion of Samhain. She grabs his Halloween bag and tosses it out the fire escape. Now, like any 11 or 12-year-old kid, he's normally been standoffish with his mom, but for the first time he admits he's really scared. She summons her courage and says she'll take care of it. Just lock the door and don't answer it, especially if it's trick-or-treaters. Back at HQ, Erin stumbles in and finds Kevin. She unties him as he explains what happened. He admits all the equipment was destroyed. They search the building and find a back room marked Holtzman's Toy Chest, keep out. Inside, they find a small copter with a blaster attached. Untested. A license plate reads Ecto 2. In Midtown, the cops are at a standstill. They can't just shoot a bunch of kids, and tear gas does nothing. The Ghostbusters try their blasters, but it only succeeds in stunning them momentarily. There are hundreds of kids acting as a human shield. Very quickly, the Ghostbusters find themselves surrounded on all sides by creepy kids. Meanwhile, atop the Empire State Building, we see Samhain. Massive, covering the whole top of the building like King Kong. His face looks like something out of a Halloween 2 poster. His cape bellows in the wind. His voice is booming. He summons all the spirits of the world, calling them his little children. It should look impressive. I mean, real Night on Bald Mountain stuff. The spirits swirl around him like moths to the flame. Then the ghost of Shandor stares down at the children, explaining to Lord Samhain how he brought them here as one last human sacrifice to destroy the barrier between the living and the dead. Once the children are sacrificed, all will be endless night. He stares at the Ghostbusters.
Ugh, them again.
A ghost flies by and whispers something in his ear.
Really?
He says.
Well then, let's go trick-or-treating.
We then cut to Erin's apartment, where her son is watching the news. The door knocks. Through the peephole, he sees children in costumes. The kid refuses to open the door. Then the entire apartment is attacked by possessed kids. Erin's son flees into the bathroom and bolts the door. A voice calls. He stares into the mirror and sees his own reflection. Suddenly it smiles with an evil grin and glowing red eyes.
Trick or treat,
it says in Shandor's voice, and then reaches out and pulls him into the mirror. At HQ, Erin sits in Ecto 2. She asks Kevin if this will work. He says he shared Shandor's mind while he was possessed and therefore knows Samhain's weakness. It's the sun. So they've rigged the chopper with ultraviolet lights that they looted from a tanning salon across the street. She takes off, sloppily, and nearly clips the building. Back at the Empire State Building, the Ghostbusters are about to get trounced by a bunch of possessed kids when Erin haphazardly flies in. She activates the lights, temporarily blinding Samhain. The possessed kids collapse for an instant. The ladies cheer Erin on as they bust through to the elevator. And as a funny aside, I thought maybe they could listen to crappy elevator music on the long ride up while Erin is frantically evading ghosts in the sky. Once atop the building, all four are horrified to find Erin's son floating in front of Samhain, possessed by Ivo Shandor. Holtzman says they've been going about this all wrong. They can't kill Samhain, they need to send him back by blasting the tower itself, which is gathering all of this energy. But what about the kid? Any attempt to blaster him is repelled by a magical wave of Shandor's hand, similar to what Gozer did in the original. That's when Patty says she's had enough. She takes off her proton pack and walks up to him, smooth-talking her way in. She says she'd rather join the winning side. The other three are incredulous. Shandor, seeing she's unarmed, lets her join him. She stands behind him and reaches behind her, trying to convince the Ghostbusters to join her. But as she's talking to them, she reaches behind her. She cleverly hid a trap in her uniform. She shoves the trap into the possessed kid's back. At point-blank range, she opens it. Shandor is sucked in, sparing Erin's son. She then tackles the kid to the ground and shields him. "Now!" Holtzman shouts. They take aim at the tower and blast it. There's a big explosion, and that's it. Fancy special effects, Shandor is in a trap, Samhain buggers off back to Halloween Town, and the city is saved. In the epilogue, Kevin tells Patty that her old advertising firm is reporting a ghost, and she tells him to pencil them in for next month and triple the fee. Holtzman and Abby, meanwhile, are busy designing a new containment unit, and Erin's story is finally published, only now it exonerates the Ghostbusters and proclaims them the saviors of the city. The paper flies off the shelves like hotcakes, and Erin's boss offers her a promotion, but she quits. She claims she already has a job, and returns to Ghostbusters HQ. Much like the reboot, half the city seems to believe the Ghostbusters story, while the other half doesn't know what to make of it. But the city lights up in a thank you, which I thought was kinda cute in the reboot, so I'll keep it here. I'd also keep the Ernie Hudson cameo about the hearse, because, well, he was the only cameo I really liked. I guess if you want a sequel bait moment, focus on the trap with Shandor in it. It blinks and then buzzes with electricity like something's about to go down. I don't know, something like that. And there it is. Is it the greatest story ever told? No. Does it need to be told? No. But if we're gonna be told anyway with this cast, that's probably how I would do it, I guess? You've got real scares, a Halloween plot, some nods to the original lore and the cartoon series, and kids being saved by Ghostbusters, which is something I think most kids could identify with. Point being, the stakes are real, the world is real, but the craziness that breaks through is what juxtaposes with the dry wit. And yes, you can have 4 women and they can be funny if you treat your story with respect. Problem was never the women, problem was the movie they built around them. Tone-wise, I'd probably go for something like Monster Squad or a lighter version of Stranger Things with toned-down homages, maybe to Poltergeist or Halloween 3 or Stephen King's It, and obviously the '84 film. You can have something that appeals to kids without making it a cartoony Nickelodeon movie. But what do I know? Not much. And on that note, I'm done. I hope you've enjoyed this long analysis and rewrite of the 2016 reboot. Maybe you agree with me, maybe you don't. I'm sure you'll let me know one way or the other. But hey, what would your Ghostbusters reboot look like? Let us know in the comments, and if you like what you see, hit the subscribe button. Until next time,
We're ready to believe.